Hello everyone, it's Supra, and I've got a bit of an Overwatch video, or more accurately, I've just got a bit of a video, because I don't really come out with those often. So, this is, it's going to be a bit of a discussive video. I'm not going to be totally on one side of the argument, but I was definitely encouraged to talk about this after a recent patch to the game, which I found controversial, and I don't think it was justified compared to all the other changes. Overwatch is my first Blizzard game and I've been very impressed with it so far. Their character creation is pretty good. It's all tied up in a nice package which is fun and has a bit of lore to it as well, and I'm really impressed with it. It is the best game that I've bought this year so far, besides maybe Doom, but those games aren't really comparable. It's my favourite multiplayer game of this year, let's go with that. So as you probably know, the projectile hitboxes in Overwatch used to be very forgiving. Projectile meaning a bullet or whatever that doesn't impact as soon as it's shot. So a good comparison would be Hanzo and Widowmaker. Hanzo has an arrow that once you fire it, it has travel time, and it has a different hitbox compared to a hit scan weapon, which Widowmaker has. You left click and her bullet impacts as soon as you click. The hitboxes in Overwatch were very forgiving, and people complained about this. People thought that it's not right that there isn't a exact one-to-one scale, and that it should be, because fuck balance, right? Other video producers seem to agree that it's all the most difficult players in the game that have been affected by this negatively. It has made them more difficult to play. It hasn't been a change which has increased their skill ceiling, it's literally just been a change of making them more difficult to use, and therefore less viable. So the angle that I was going to have in this video was that Hanzo is just completely obsolete compared to Widowmaker, especially now after the patch. I believe that all the patches so far besides this one have been in goodwill and have been justified, but this one, I think it was just kind of like a populist change, like a kind of dice move that they did just because people complained about it and not because it actually had a negative effect in the game. No one fucking plays Hanzo as it is, so I think the people that were complaining about him have just looked at a video or a screenshot or something like that and then complained about it and then fucked off. But today I stumbled upon a much bigger post which incorporated my sort of thoughts, but at a much wider scale. And this was posted yesterday, or at the time that I'm recording this, probably a couple of days ago. Every defense hero is terrible, is the title, which is pretty sensationalist, but the article is basically an article. It's a huge post. While a lot of it is looking at it from one angle only, I will talk about that at the end. While professional players' character and hero pick rates has implications on character balance and hero balance, it doesn't have as much of an effect in public games. And I'll talk about that after I've talked about some of his points. So he starts off, as I said, by linking the pick rate from the last tournament. And as you can see, down all the way at second bottom there, is Hanzo with 1 minute and 7 seconds playtime. Yeah, I think that balance to Hanzo really made him much more enticing, compared to McCree and Zenyatta with 14 hours of playtime, which definitely says something because Zenyatta pretty much used to be where Symmetra is now, at the very bottom. Now he is picked second most with a total of 93% pick rate. Now I'm going to talk about it here. He does point it out in his post, but if you just look at Junkrat, he is the most picked defensive hero with 8 minutes and 6 seconds at less than 1% pick rate, 0.89%. And Junkrat is a character who I don't particularly find that appealing. His projectiles you can't really control, and his ultimate is one of the easiest ones to just negate and counter. And Junkrat has more than twice the pick rate of Widowmaker. Widowmaker used to have, as this guy explains, a 70% pick rate, and if you looked at the earlier tournaments for Overwatch and you looked at players in like Flipside and stuff like that, I can't remember his name, I didn't think that type of gameplay existed. The stuff that people could pull off with Widowmaker, her character really exploited people with very, very good accuracy, allowing them to output DPS very quickly and pull off shots that were just insane. It wasn't just phase level shit, like it wasn't just a fucking trick shot, you know, it affected the game quite substantially. And now Widowmaker is down there at 0.43% pick rate. And no one in the EU picked her. That's pretty shit for Widowmaker, let's be honest. So if you just let that sink in, that situation that Junkrat has a higher pick rate, more than twice than Widowmaker, then we can get into this this post here by Truthful on the Overwatch subreddit. The current meta by professional players is a consistent one and has been for several weeks now. I know it seems like offensive heroes are always what seem overpowered, but I believe that isn't the case, possibly excluding McCree. I believe an entire class of heroes is just completely underpowered, thus leading to a meta of everything, I think he means everyone, excluding them. I'll go over the meta here. If you instead want my explanation of why defense heroes are terrible, scroll down to the section titled Defensive Heroes, and that's what I'm going to do just for the convenience of this video. So, defense heroes. In the current meta, and even in the meta shaping up prior to the most recent patch, defense heroes have always had a terrible time finding a niche to fill. Here is a list of defensive heroes, including one that I consider to be a misclassified defensive hero: Bastion, Hanzo, Junkrat, Mei, Symmetra, Torbjorn, and Widowmaker. Let's go through them one at a time. And I'm only going to cover a few of them because some of the points that he makes alludes to the angle that I'm trying to have for this video. So, Bastion. Bastion's pick rate has always been absolutely horrid. We're talking consistently less than 5% pick rate for a couple of months. Only been beaten out by Hanzo, Mei, Zenyatta, and now Symmetra in lower pick rates. In Sentry mode, Bastion can do 450 damage per second if every one of the 30 rounds he shoots in a second lands a body shot. This is higher if he lands headshots as well. This is insane on paper, but as everyone who was a noob at one time remembers, he absolutely shreds people who have no idea how to deal with him. Problem is, pretty much everyone can deal with him so well at this point that he just takes up an extra spot in your team that could be better utilised by someone else. And this is what I kind of feel like with Hanzo. He doesn't fit a niche that isn't better utilised by someone else. You could pick another character and perform his role, but also be more versatile in other areas. And that, I think, is part of the problem with Hanzo and the defensive heroes that he talks about. Hanzo. Poor guy, his pick rate has always been low, but never this low. He's always had problems nailing people with his projectile arrow, even with the once broken hitboxes, and I think personally he's using the word broken and just a term to boast his argument. I don't think that they were broken. Maybe they needed a little tweak, but as I said, I don't think that it has benefited the game and the balance of the characters at all. Since 1.1, those hitboxes have been tightened and Hanzo was given nothing to help him in return. So Hanzo moves slowly with his arrows knocked, can only do 29 to 125 damage with body shots based on how drawn his bow is, and has potentially the worst ult in the game. I don't think that he has the worst ult in the game. I think that people just tend to use it poorly and in poor positions and stuff like that. But I understand where he's coming from. Is one of the easier ones to avoid along with Junkrat's ult, I think. His kit has a couple of nice abilities, but overall you're better off picking someone else in his place. And this is what I mean. You can pick Widowmaker, and in general you can actually just pick an offensive hero like he says and just get up in someone's face, and you don't need to sit back being the sniper role. There's only certain situations that I think people can exploit those roles well, and it's up to them if they exploit them well in the first place. So let's go down to Widowmaker and then his main points. Widowmaker. Poor girl. Widowmaker used to have a very high pick rate, like 70%, before her well-deserved nerf 6 feet under the dirt. Back then, she could just shoot Zenyatta and Tracer in the toe to kill them off, which now Zenyatta has been buffed. His health has been increased to 200, so I don't even think that nerf to Widowmaker was necessary, but we have it anyway. Her ult was so incredibly difficult to hear, but now Widowmaker is a 200 HP sniper who finds little use in being played because enemy flankers can easily destroy her. She has an escape, but it has a very long cooldown. Her sniper rifle damage may indeed be too low now that Zenyatta no longer has to worry about being body shot, like I just said. I'd argue that any place she may have in the meta is taken by McCree. There aren't really many maps that require long range sniping, as pretty much every map has tight corners preventing her from actually sniping. With perfect aim, headshots can do 300 damage and kill everyone who isn't a tank, but unfortunately you're dealing with characters running and jumping all over the place and you scope slowly. Main points. Defensive heroes suck. All of them have basically no niche to fill currently, as any potential niche is countered by enemy flankers off tanks incredibly well. Worse still, some defensive heroes are just worthless in any situation, as any other competent player can easily shut them down. One major issue that's on Blizzard's to fix is the rate at which defensive teams win in comparison to defensive teams when it comes to payload matches. This is a particularly horrible situation as newer players win more in defense than on offense. But you know, there's an issue that's even bigger in my opinion. No one wants defensive heroes buffed because they're annoying. I've been on the forums for a long time since open beta. People don't talk about nerfing or buffing defense heroes because whenever someone makes a thread saying that Mei needs a buff, the OP will be showered with downvotes and told how annoying Mei is. The same goes for any defense hero. They're all designed to stop offensive heroes from advancing, and that's, well, annoying to deal with. They're also easy to deal with that they're nothing more than a nuisance, but still people don't want to buff annoying heroes. Some will simply argue that pro games, competitive mode and quick play are completely different and insist that the game be balanced over all these modes. Unfortunately, I think that is simply impossible to accomplish and silly to think. Look at any other successful game within the esports scene. You'll note that every one of them has a company focused on balancing their characters or in competitive, while the more casual players simply play the game and have fun either way after they're used to the changes. Yes, I hated it when I didn't know how to deal with Bastion and was always completely stomped, but I eventually figured out how to deal with him. That goes for every defense class hero. You just learn how to deal with them and they stop being relevant. That's fine for quick play, but in the competitive scene, you can't have nearly half the roster under 1% pick rate. Low hero diversity makes for predictable tournaments picks and outcomes. So the angle that this guy's having is that we should look at the implications of the professional tournaments pick rates and that a change needs to happen. But honestly, I don't think that you should balance the game like that. This post is looking at it from the standpoint of if you're playing against a group of players that have absolutely no imperfections, then defensive players are useless to you. And that is just simply not the case in practice, and I don't even think necessarily in professional play. I just think that these pick rates are a reflection of a patch of changes that weren't warranted and just make difficult to play characters more difficult for no real reason other than the fact that people complained about it. Overwatch can seek to be as balanced as it can be, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it will be an esport title of the likes of Counter-Strike, Dota and League of Legends, and that doesn't mean that it's a bad game, or a game that isn't fun, or a casual game. It's just how the game's designed, and there's nothing bad with that. So that's all for this one. Hopefully I got the message across. Please remember to rate and comment, check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.